So my name is Jen. I am a pediatric nurse. I work here at Foundations Wellness. Been a pediatric nurse for over 20 years. And full transparency here, I'm not used to speaking in front of people. I work with kids, not speak to a room full of adults. So I'm going to read a little bit from my slides, if you'll just bear with me. But I began to think outside of the box about 15 years ago when my daughter was born and had a medical condition. I was just not okay with, well, this is probably genetic. Well, we might be able to do this. Why don't you do this? As a parent, I was determined to get to the bottom. Why is this and what can I do for her? And I'm not going to stop trying. So that's really when my journey started. Fast forward to 3 years ago, began a medical journey of my own. Make a very long story short, Teresa and I met. She found me, or I found her. We met, and I began working here, and the rest is history. This place is awesome. Lots of healing here, lots of hope here. I have a husband and 2 kids. They're both teenagers. I'm very passionate about working with kids and their wellness. Today we're going to talk about anxiety in kids. So raise your hand if you have an anxious child yourself. Okay? Raise a hand if you know of an anxious child. So here we have a situation. And it seems like it's becoming more and more a common theme these days. Here are some charts. The chart on the left is just some evidence to show data that was collected and what the trends are. So both charts are over a 5-year period of time. The chart on the left is the percentage of pediatric patients with anxiety diagnosis and how it has grown over the period of 5 years. And it more than doubled. I know it's hard to see on that slide. And then the slide on the right, you all can see, is the percentage of pediatric patients prescribed an anti-anxiety or antidepressant prescription over this period of 5 years. And again, you probably can't see, but that number has grown 6-fold, so huge. So why? Why? And again, this is not okay with me. One thing that I did last fall, I went to a pediatric functional medicine brain health summit in California and met some of the leading pediatric functional pediatricians in the world. It was pretty amazing. But what inspired me was they talked about the gut-brain connection, the microbiome, and how the microbiome affects the gut, and what do we get? Anxious kids. And I was like, yes, yes, let's talk about this. There is an answer outside of, it's just genetic. You might be anxious as a parent, you gave it to your kid. Let's think outside of that box. And that's what I am doing in this pioneering space. As a holistic practitioner, we're thinking outside of the box and realizing that many other factors are playing a role, such as the gut and the autonomic nervous system. So we're going to delve into that and talk a bit about the science behind the two and what we can actually do about it and what we can do for our kids. So the gut microbiome is the collection of the microorganisms and viruses that live in the digestive system. There's good guys and there's bad guys. The good guys are, and we've heard some of these terms mentioned previously this evening, but just to sort of refresh your memory, the good guys are the probiotic strains such as lactobacillus and bifidobacteria versus the bad guys. When we talk about bad guys, think bacteria like strep, C. diff, E. coli, fungal bacteria, viruses, and protozoans or parasites. What affects it? Family genes, things, as Teresa mentioned, that are passed down through the umbilical cord blood, heavy metals, toxins, man-made toxins that weren't supposed to be in our bodies. In the environment, toxins that are in the air, food, and water, such as pesticides and herbicides that were also mentioned, and heavy metals. Medications such as antibiotics affect the gut microbiome. Our diet, gluten, pasteurized dairy, processed sugars, and then illnesses such as COVID, and then stress we know affects our gut microbiome. So how do the good guys affect the microbiome? The good guys create and regulate good brain chemicals like serotonin and dopamine. They help your body digest food and absorb nutrients. And they help the cells that line your gut to keep bad bacteria from entering your blood. This is also a term known as leaky gut, again mentioned tonight. So if we can really build those good bacteria, that can help support those cells that prevent you from developing leaky gut. The good guys produce vitamins like B vitamins, increase levels of vitamin D absorption by the gut, and they destroy disease-causing cells like cancer cells, and they help build a strong and healthy, robust immune system. And then we're going to talk about the overgrown bad guys affecting the microbiome. Those bad guys that are overgrown cause an increase in inflammation throughout the body. They lower the feel-good chemicals like serotonin and dopamine, and those directly correlate with anxiety and depression. They create allergies, autoimmune conditions such as Crohn's disease, thyroid disorders, and diabetes. And those overgrown bad guys can invade directly and damage tissues. They can create infection or illness such as strep, C. diff, and so on. And then we've got the autonomic nervous system, and the vagus nerve. And I promise this will get a little bit exciting, but as a nurse, the science is important. So the vagus nerve is the pathway in which the gut and the brain communicate. It's also known as the gut-brain axis. The vagus nerve senses the microbiome and transfers the gut information to the central nervous system. The vagus nerve is also known as the sixth sense. The vagus nerve is the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system, which Lisa was discussing is the rest or digest portion of the nervous system. The vagus nerve is directly impacted by stress and an imbalanced microbiome. So what do we have when we have an imbalanced gut microbiome and a weakened vagus nerve? Vagus nerve. We have a whole generation of hyperactive, inattentive, anxious children. So what are we going to do about it? Traditional medicine says, well, here you go, let's take this medicine to support the dopamine and the serotonin. Maybe you should go take them to see a therapist and talk it out. Maybe there's some hidden things that they need to discuss. But the functional practitioners take a step deeper and work on fixing the microbiome and working on the vagus nerve. So helping our anxious kids. The most important thing we can do first is stop the inflow of anything killing the good guys in the microbiome. So filtered water. Filtered water doesn't mean just your fridge water. As Teresa mentioned, at least a zero pitcher, or the Berkey, or reverse osmosis. Organic foods. And the Environmental Working Group has a list of the Dirty Dozen foods. So those are the foods that are considered the most contaminated with herbicides and pesticides. You can refer to that list. So when you're at the grocery store and determine, okay, is this something that I should buy organic versus inorganic? Antibiotics only if necessary. If a kiddo's got a snotty nose, cough, congestion, is it really necessary to run to the doctor for that antibiotic? Good hand washing techniques. This seems like parenting 101, but it's so vitally important. It protects against viral illnesses, like flu and COVID, which again affect the microbiome. So simple things such as washing their hands with soap and water and counting or singing the ABCs. It's very important. Again, what can we do to help our anxious kids? Correct the microbiome imbalance and support the immune system with probiotic foods and supplements. And we are going to do a demonstration coming up next for the probiotic jar veggies. We can supplement with probiotics. Fermented foods, like the sourdough that Liz was discussing earlier. There are herbs that are supportive of the microbiome, such as fennel, ginger, clove, turmeric, cinnamon. And then here at Foundations Wellness Coaching, we have liposomal essential oil formulas that are custom made for the bacteria specific to your body based off of what the Zyto scan tells us. There's also testing that can be done to look specifically at the gut bacteria to tell us what is overgrown, what do we not have enough of, what good guys do we not have enough of. Sort of takes the guesswork out and lets us dig deeper and see specifically what is the imbalance that's going on. So we've talked a bit about detox tonight. Detox is vital in helping our anxious kids. Again, the Ion Cleanse by AMD. And two of these, this is my niece and nephew. They love coming to Aunt Jen's house because it's fun at my house, let's be honest, but they love, and this is, truth be told, my family is sitting back there. They can validate for me. They want to play with Aunt Jen's fun filtered water faucet, and they want to do the foot bath. The kids love the foot bath, and it's interesting to me that my teenagers thought that I was insane when I brought it home, and they said, "Oh, Mom, what are you doing? What do we have to do now?" And you know what? About probably 2 months in, they routinely ask for it now. And I mean, to be honest, they fight over after dinner who's doing the foot bath first. So it's legit. The foot bath, it actively detoxes the body, as Lisa explained, pulls toxins out of the hiding and helps the body rid itself of them much more effectively. The Ion Cleanse stimulates that autonomic nervous system. It triggers a parasympathetic response. It wakes up the vagus nerve. I asked my daughter last night, I said, "So tell me, give me a testimony. Why do you always want to do a foot bath?" She said, "Mom, I just sleep so much better." Okay, and it's true. My husband said, "You guys are all in good news today." And I said, "Oh, well, we did foot baths last night." And he's like, "I knew it." It's true. Also for detox support, binders, as Teresa mentioned, we like to use the Cellcore binders, but any binder to help the body rid itself of toxins. Again, testing. There's testing out there that can be done to look to see specifically, are we looking at heavy metals? What toxins are we looking at detoxing? Glyphosate, for example. So many kids test high for glyphosate, my own included. So if we know that specifically going in, we can dive deeper and sort of work harder, taking the guesswork out of what we're detoxing against. Also helping our anxious kids, there are supplements such as GABA, L-theanine, CBD in those ages 8 and older, Kava, and then there's a product called Bravo GC Math, which is a probiotic combined with a healing protein product. And then of course they're stimulating the vagus nerve. Some of these things sound so simple, but it works. It works. Exercising, take your kid outside and go to the park. Some deep breathing, singing, laughing, getting them to play with their friends. Again, sounds so simple. And then there's things such as craniosacral therapy, which works directly on the vagus nerve and the flow of the craniosacral fluid through the body. And then again, to stimulate the vagus nerve, we've got the ion cleanse foot bath. Also, to help your anxious child, you can come work with me. This is my email address and our phone number here at Foundations Wellness Coaching. And this is my reference page, also my family. Just another personal story that sort of has come out of has led me to this talk of anxious kids. I had my son who was pretty kind of I don't know, he was maybe a little bit anxious at baseline, but nothing too impressive. Loved school, has lots of friends. Came down with COVID a year and a half ago. We talked about how COVID, the spike proteins affect the microbiome. He suddenly was a pretty mild COVID course, felt better, went back to school. 2 days later, all of a sudden he was hysterical about going to school. This is my 11-year-old kid who thrives off of his social life and being around his friends, and then it was like a switch turned, and very upset and just not himself. And as a parent, there's nothing more frightening than seeing your kid act not himself. So it was shortly after that point that I found Foundations Wellness. We got a foot bath and again worked on detox, and he's himself again. Again, they ask for that pretty regularly, so it is a vital tool in our house. Yes.